Hello, all. Welcome to Three Heroes, One Shaft. Today, we'll be presenting the Art of Warcry, Adepticon Prepticon Part 2 Deployment Boogaloo. We'll be reviewing deployments for the pack, looking at how to deploy your lists in the Hammer, Dagger, and Shield, and placement within deployment zones. But before we get started here, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. Be the hero, don't be the chaff. Really helps us out, helps us grow the channel. And to get started, we're going to just hop right into hobby time. Peter, what have you been working on?
Oh, now that got the first tournament of the year out of the way,
The
just
first win out of the way.
Tricking everybody into your casual list, right? Got it. Go
Right.
continue. Sorry,
Right.
my apologies.
Right, that's right. I got some more destruction to paint as always, and I'm determined to finish up more of my home casual list. So I actually have Night Hunt on the table, so I'm going to paint
See,
that.
that would
up.
have been a casual list. That would have been crazy.
Got Sons of Elmore and Allied in, but it's technically a Night Hawk list.
One Night Hawk, Sons of Elmore, Dianthelos, like
Right.
casual.
Yeah, it's
Right.
Briar Queen, Wielder, the Blade, and then just all allies, right?
Right. No, it's pure Night Hunt. Pure Night Hunt.
Sweet.
Imagine that. Now you will never see that with me, but yes, it'll be great at home. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter's like, this game's too easy. I got to handicap myself. Let me build Night Haunt. Just
Let me type both my arms behind my back and try to headbutt you to death.
When I want to go, 0 wins in the day, I'll bring that puppy out.
Whoops! I lost it. I lost it on the way here. I brought it competently.
What about
you, Mike? What you got going on?
I'm still. When this comes out, I've probably already either gone 4-0 or 0-4 at the tournament that's coming up for the weekend. Working on the city stuff, and then working on my 2 Adepticon projects. Still sourcing a few bits for some pretty mega conversions. I'm really excited about both of them. There's going to be some fun stuff. I try to keep it a secret. I don't really care if people know the list. It's just like I don't want people to know like what the theme and intent is of what's going on with them. So yeah, I'm super stoked for those. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Just a lot of work. And my goal this year is to try to have it done at least 2 days before. So if I pull an all-nighter, it's 2 days before the event, not the day off the event. So we'll see how it goes. A lot to do though.
But we don't have to hide
Mike,
it, Mike. We know it's Hello Kitty.
Best on no sleep.
That's you know what? But again, I'm not going for. I don't know if I'm going to try to win it. I'm just trying to have a good time and show out the memes, right? If they do well, they do well. They won't if I sleep, obviously. But
I mean, if the paint on the model is still wet on the tables, it's still considered painted.
Look. I'm pretty sure nobody's told me otherwise, right?
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey, do you mind if I hold this as I move it and put a couple more strokes on there before I set it down?
Dips in a big pot of known oil, slaps it on the table.
Last year, actually, one of my buddies, Vin, he stayed up until like 2 a.m. painting an AOS army the night before he was playing it. And I'm pretty sure all of his compound, like for like the basing and stuff like that, was still wet. But he got it done. He's a legend. I can't believe how fast he can turn stuff out. So
you just use the oil or the old like shade dip from Army Painter. Just like dunk them in and slap them on the table.
It's just deck paint, right? You just some deck stain.
Done. You guys like the shade. It'd be like the shade's sick.
Look at the depth of color. It's good. You can tell the shadows are so real. It looks like a photo negative.
Just what's the sepia? It just looks like sepia army. Like sepia, what's your faction? Yeah. Diarrhea. Like awesome.
They just got out of the sewer. I don't know what happened.
Right.
They haven't washed up yet.
Ooh, actually, that's not. Well, I won't say anymore, but that might be relevant. All right, swing it over to Rob before I disclose any more secrets.
Went to the first tournament with these lads after having a existential crisis at 2-2, and wanting to learn now how to pivot off some things. Just painting up the rest of my cities, and then kind of just looking around to see what I want to do to Adepticon still. Probably won't decide until a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to immediately hate my decision the night before, and that's how we win. That's how we just go right into the top standings. It's worked for me before, so we'll do that.
It's not about enjoying it. It's about hating yourself as much as you can and trying to win with that.
Right. See, I was too confident and like okay with everything. I didn't even look at the deployments. You know what? That's a
I
big
need a
problem.
baseline of anxiety to be running on
Yeah.
at all times where I'm dysfunctional.
If I don't feel like I'm about to steal my dog's Lexapro, I don't want to be playing. This is not how I'm gonna win.
Oh,
Like,
it was the diuretic. Oh, it's gonna
yeah,
be a bad day.
no, for sure. But I'm having a fun time swapping over to city stuff right now, which is proving to be interesting and challenging, but like very rewarding. So I'm really excited to try some new stuff on the table and try some other stuff on TTS. Waiting patiently for the new box of Warcry and seeing where we're going from there. That's about it.
Yeah, those the cities you painted already look gorgeous, and I know they're
For
super
sure.
super detailed models and take forever to paint those up. But definitely one of those armies that I can't wait till we talk about it more, just because there's such a high skill cap army to play. Just so much fun because of that. But I'll just round us off here. Obviously, I'm still working on my gold demon entry. I mean, I put almost 12 hours into it yesterday alone, just trying to
Wait. That's 12 hours.
yeah,
Did you
I
wake
would
up
yesterday.
passion for this,
I'd be
or
like
was this?
45 in to get anywhere even resembling something like that. So that's wild to me.
I mean that's no. What you've seen isn't just done in 12 hours. That's probably closer to like 50, 100
13
hours
and a
easy
half.
into it.
You know,
It's like
it's
10 minutes.
Yeah,
I just dunked it in some
12
paint,
and
and that's
change.
and that's good. But just like I'm just learning a lot from like the crafting side of things, like creating flags out of like tin and whatnot. But
so sick.
also really looking forward to the FEC coming out. It might be after this is released, actually. Hopefully, I can see my Cardinal, the Meryl Scroll Herald, and Usherin himself over in the mail, popping it here and trying
The
to get those built
meatball,
before
the big
Adepticon.
meatball man.
Oh man, dude, that
Look,
guy
he's
has
got his
so
safety
many
blanket, and
meatballs.
I feel that. And now my weighted blanket, it
Yep.
just it's
He's
great.
got the holes
Uh,
in it from his childhood, just all of the rubbing and pilling of the fibers.
right. I mean, I just think it's a sweet model. I'm a
It
sucker for
is.
Yeah.
those ones.
It's
Yeah.
an awesome
Mhm.
model.
But we're here to talk about deployments. So I know we have a nice little handy dandy data chart to talk about this because for those of you who don't know, the mission pack going into this is largely undecided. We don't know what it's actually going to be until the day of. All we know is we get to choose between a small number of 30 freaking missions, meaning that directly planning your deployment is going to be a serious challenge. So, I believe Mike, you got the Excel ready to go there.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for us.
Fantastic. So,
Man,
why
look
don't
at
you
my
take us
hard
through
work.
this? For those who don't know, we had to fix Rob's mistakes about 37 times.
There was
So,
no mistakes. The math was all correct. Everything was good. Just
Hey,
added
Rob,
color.
Rob, why don't you try and explain what you were working on here? So, because you're the only one that can, it's like handwriting. Sometimes you can read it, sometimes you can't. Hey, there's a theory behind what was happening, but nobody knows what it is.
Okay, so this one's easy. You just read across the top, and then you read downwards. Right. This says mission. It's where our missions are. This says dagger, shield, and hammer. Pretty much what we wanted to do was compile everything that we have that we're using. We are not using the white dwarf missions that were the brutal conquest, cursed treasure, and altar of supreme ascendancy. So those are not here, but everything else is compiled from the core book, the Rumble Pack book, the new one, Scales of Talaxis. I think it's called Scales of War, and the community missions. So
When
if
real
you
quick
look
though,
over,
those community missions, right? So this is kind of a pivot from the last episode that we did.
Mhm.
At the
right,
time of the last episode, the missions were only going to be core book and rumble pack. However, Dan over at the Salty Sea got in the TO's ear and shared some of the other awesome missions that the community has created, and also the ones from the new White
Scales.
Dwarf.
Yeah.
So those have been added to the retinue of possibilities, which has really opened up the possibilities for what we might be facing here. And then Dan, I think, compiled that whole that community mission pack. I'll try to chuck a link in the description for this one too, and I can throw this one in there for the spreadsheet as well, so if folks want to see it and use it for prep and stuff like that.
Yeah, and thank God he did, honestly, because if it was just core book and Rumble Pack, it's kind of like a really tough take all comers list, and you either get a mission that's good for you or you don't. So by him talking to the TO really saved, I think, the tournament in terms of like giving it such a beautiful large variety. I was really worried about it at first, and it was very overwhelming. But I think the more I sat and stewed on it, the more I began to be in love with the fact that I don't have to worry so much about what I'm bringing. I'm just going to bring it, and we're just going to cook from there. We do know that it's it's at least one kill, one treasure, one objective, and one fill. So whatever it is at that point. So we know we're going to get one of each no matter what. So you look at this beautiful little spreadsheet that I made, and Mike gussied it up and did a great job doctoring it to make it for human translation. And pretty much, yeah. So you look at dagger, shield, hammer are deployments. If it's a 1, that means it's coming out on turn 1. If it's a 2, it's coming out on round 2. Not very hard. For me, it is. So you just go down the line and we scroll down and we break these apart. So I did the total as we go through everything. And it's really cool to see that, loot and pillage spoils where sees the rumble pack and scales of war only have 1 each, but they're all divided equally. So hammer, shield, dagger each have 2 appearances for first round.
Rob, you said, right, sorry if I missed it, but you said, so the number in this shows which round they're coming on, right?
It's turn 1, right? Yeah,
right.
Round 1. So that's
what
where
I'm
they're
liking
going.
about like this many missions too, and like as you're scrolling through this, we're seeing it seems to be close to balance, and then you got a total at the end. But one of the things I've never liked is, if for example, shield is way prevalent, like 80% of missions have shield.
Right.
You have these lists that are just super alpha strike lists, like they put 500 points into this one deployment, and just this comes out first, gets into your face, wrecks your day, and the mission's over. I'm just liking the
Right.
fact that if you want to try that, I mean, go for it. But there's a non-zero chance that you don't see that to round 2, and your entire mission plan is just on the back foot. So I think that's gonna be pretty big going into this.
Right, because typically when prepping, I would look to see what's the most common deployment group. So then I'd be like, oh, shields coming 4 out of the 5 rounds there. I put in all my big dudes in shields, right? Put my Varangard in the shield, put my FOMO, whatever my biggest point is and my hardest hitter or whatever I need to get off that foot, I'm putting there. That was typically the line of thought to get the most value out of the most points. Keep scrolling down, like these are all the community missions. This is like a beautiful
these ones aren't.
conglomerations.
These ones don't have internal balance because they're kind of just a compilation of all of the ones that have been made. So I think
Right.
I think there's probably a little more skew in these because it's not built for internal balance. It's between the deployments. It's literally only built, as throwaway missions essentially that you can add and subtract and do whatever you want. And the nice thing about them is if you want to change deployments to make it fit whatever pack that you're using, do it. It's fine.
Right.
You can
To
use
your point, Rob, as well, like stacking like one deployment with all your big guys, like even knowing the mission packs ahead of time, we know the 4 missions as well. You could look at the objective mission and state, hey, I want my biggest group in terms of just not my strongest models, but maybe the most amount of models to come in on a certain mission to say, if I have 4 guys on an objective mission, turn 1, I'm more likely to hold objectives than my opponent as well. So it's even harder to plan around that. I mean, looking at the summary here, I mean, 16, 17, 18, yeah, there's a slight difference, but statistically speaking, if I'm rolling the dice on this is basically equal.
Yeah, that's the cool part, right? So like you can take one of the ways to do it is you can say, okay, so simply put, right? Minimal effort. Hammer appears the most. Let's put our most valuable stuff in hammer. Odds are is that it'll be the highest amount. Hammer will show first. Cool. And then we'll go shield and then we'll go dagger down the line. I think that originally would have been really cool. And if there was more of a difference, then you definitely stack it. But the one thing I would recommend at this point, then, if you want to sit down and you want to go through the missions, find missions that you might need. Like, I need this to come out here in order for me to win this mission. Find that at deployment, stick that guy there and be like, listen, I know if this comes up, I'm going to be okay. It's a gamble.
Oh,
And
great,
there's a lot of
great
stuff.
example of that, Rob, in Core Pack, right? Cursed Relic and Treasure Hunters. Those are 2 really, really important turn 1 initiatives and just generally turn 1, right? You need to try to scoop that middle treasure in Treasure Hunters and Cursed Relic. You want to try to get that as soon as possible. So yeah, looking at what I want to make sure I have a treasure carrier. And if you want to prep for both of those, look at this shield right here. You got shield in round 1 in both of those. So maybe put your best treasure carrier into your shield if you're wanting to be prepared to have both of those missions show up.
Which is against what we just said earlier, right? With hammer being the most stacked, you originally said, all right, maybe I wanted my best guys there. Now you're thinking, well, shield's only a little bit behind, but for these missions, if I don't have this, I'm going to be on the back foot.
Right.
really it is a guessing game, but I think you could still stack the odds a little bit more in your favor for certain missions. Whereas other missions, you can say like I'm okay being a little bit behind, but these I'll be horribly behind if I don't do this. What do you
Right.
think, Pete? Haven't heard from
But
you in a minute.
it's tricky, right? Because like a lot of tournaments, they have a set like these are the missions. This
Mhm.
is what you're playing round one. This is what you're playing round two. I
Right.
like it when TOs change things up because going to a lot of tournaments, it's fun having different experiences, right? Each time, and that the mission obviously has a huge play in that. So you're going to get just a shot in the dark here. And there's a lot of good missions mixed up in this. You just don't know
Mhm.
what you're going to get. So then it becomes a question of like, I think Rob and I were originally talking about this when it first like shot out that like, hey, it's going to be a lot of things. What do you have control over? And so for
Right.
me, it's like, how are you building your deployments?
Mm.
Like, how are you expecting to be able to compensate for other deployments? Depending on what you're going to get. So that's kind of where I go with it because I tend to skew my deployments, and
Mhm.
some people like to be very balanced with them. So it's kind of figuring out what are you looking to achieve with the information that you have. Because again, we're talking about prepping, right? How do you prep for something that has this many missions?
Which you
So
make a good point, right? Like, how do I stack this better and prep for this many missions and help balance that, right? I know
Right.
before the call we were talking about actually using base size in certain deployments to try to help fix your deployment a little bit. Was it you, Pete, or Mike that brought that up?
Yeah, I think I was talking about it a little bit. Just I've played I played a list a while back with 3 Korgrats in it, and those guys are on the 90 by 52, so they got these massive ovals, and it's every time you can cheat a model out of the deployment essentially. So the rule for the deployments is if you can't fit it wholly within, you have to fit it as much
Uh-oh.
as
Smell some
wholly.
poop. Give me a second.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Oh no.
Hopefully someone else, not Rob. We'll find out. Um, but yeah,
Sorry,
so
it's a
you
cheating
can
model.
put,
Yeah.
yeah, you can. What was I talking about again? I can smell it too now. No,
Pooping a model out is what you were saying,
yeah,
I think. Yeah. Okay.
but so with that big base, and then it was only a 6 model list, so I had like one. I think it was 32 in every deployment. But I would kind of pop that 32 directly in the center because it gets weird with like the area and the math and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, if you want to deploy the bigger model closer to the left side or the right side of the deployment, assuming let's assume like one of those usual like semicircles of a deployment, you can because I guess you can't. It's a lot harder to do it if you don't have a semicircle. You can maybe get a little bit of the lip out, but usually you can mostly fit it in there. But if you put one model, your smaller model, down first, and then there's not a complete space for that big base to be able to fit in that deployment. You can cheat out of it essentially. So if I wanted the core graph to go more to the right side of the deployment, I would put my base down first, slightly to the left, so that I would have to put my core graph on the slightly on the right side. It would have to basically be base to base, so that as much of it could be in as possible. But I could potentially get outside of the deployment by like up to an inch sometimes. If it's in like terrain and stuff like that matters too. If you've got like a piece of scatter that happens to be in your deployment, can really skew the way that you can put your models down. And it what it can do is give you an advantage. Like if you're trying to chase down or try to get something onto an objective, that can be really helpful. Sometimes if you're like, and we'll probably talk about this too, but if you've pre-measured and you go, okay, I know, obviously for this one it's going to be harder, but if you realize, okay, my shield is coming on here, this model is going to be in my shield because I want it to be able to go over there and fight my opponent's hammer. Okay, if I can cheat out of my deployment a little bit, if the mission's designed so that those two can't interact without from X amount of movement, if you have to be a move 5 if you want to be able to do that, if I can deploy out of my deployment a little bit, I might be able to get away with making that interaction happen in turn one when it otherwise would not have been able to occur. So just something to consider about is the order that you're putting the models down when you actually deploy and put them on the board, because sometimes there's a way to get a little bit of extra spacing that, or get a little bit extra kind of reach onto the board that you otherwise would not if you kind of put them in a normal order. Nothing says you have to try to put them in, turn by turn.
That's interesting because like I think about the new Vargolf being on like that
Yep.
90 millimeter base, right? And your ghouls already move 5 inches. So if you could
Mhm.
just cheat out an extra inch, uh, that 6 inch range is a double move for a zombie on the other side of the team, right? So you're really kind of saying like, yeah, my speed advantage just got amplified by that large of an amount. Which can be really good, for example, as we were talking about, like we don't know where we're going to deploy, but you could say for this mission, like I want someone to be that 1 inch out so I could reach that objective and really
Mhm.
mess with my opponents where we're contesting at the minimum, and really just change that the dynamic in the game plan for sure.
Well, it's interesting too because like I often find that's what really separates more experienced Warcry players from more beginners, right? Is that knowledge of how much movement does your models have and really thinking about that when you're setting things up. Because you might set up a deployment, but if say your opponent set up first and you're looking at going like, well, he's got a Titan piece that moves 5 with a 2 inch range, so it has a 7 inch, but then you place your model just within 7 of that model, you're setting yourself up to get smacked.
Mhm.
And it can kind of create these moments where it's like, I don't know what I could have done differently. Well, what you could have done differently is just slid that model over half an inch and then you would have been fine, and vice versa, right? You could, like what Mike was saying, skewing it just that little half an inch, sometimes a quarter of an inch, can make a really big difference on whether or not you're getting an attack action in that round.
Mhm. And so I know, Peter, I watched the game that you and Rob played actually on TTS. Shout out TTS, jump in the league. Come holler at us on Discord if you want to get in on it. But there was a game that you guys were playing and you were messing around. I think it was Skabic. You were like, let's give Skabic a run. And you had a Storm Fiend hanging out in an early deployment. Rob was testing some Cities of Sigmar. I'm glad I'm saying this without him here because he's going to get upset if he hears about it again. But I know what happened to him at the tournament that you guys were at the other day. It's also a Storm Fiend.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he deployed in a space where he thought he was safe. But round one rampages still exist, and if you're deploying close to something, it's something to consider. Okay, if my opponent has, especially for those bigger pieces, you really want to try to keep important pieces safe. So I think it was for him on the weekend, it was his Beast Knob that just got blown up turn one, didn't get to play, lost 200 points from the very beginning of the game. And it's a huge swing. That's something you're relying on for so many different things, especially that model, right? It's got defensive abilities, it's got offensive power, and it's just a really, important model to the whole warband. So thinking about, not only like you said, Pete, like, okay, they've got a 5-inch move and they got a 2-inch reach. What if they rush? Okay, now all of a sudden their threat range is 8. They're probably going to have a rush if they want it. Actually guaranteed turn one, you've got a rush if you want it. Even if you roll a straight, you've got one wild dice, so you can at least get 1 extra inch of movement. So that's something that is also super important. Thinking about on your side, can I rush something that can't normally get into a deployment, give it that extra move? It is a lot harder, with the rampages. If your opponent gets a rampage of 6 inches turn one and they double move and they get to double swing on you with one of their big beasts, unfortunately it's a dice game and you got diced. That sucks.
I mean, sure, but there's things you can mitigate, right? Like, I think Peter and really kind of started off with that threat range, right? I think, for me, I play a lot of kind of hordish kind of armies. So people are like, "Oh, how do you fight horns of Hashit?" Right? My whole deployment comes out at the same time, and he's just gonna walk right up to me and just say, "I'm gonna flamethrow all your zombies and wipe out half of your team." So how do I mitigate that, right? So remembering that the deployment is that 3 inch radius, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put, say, if there's 4 zombies coming out, put 2 on one side, put 2 on complete other side. They're no longer within 2 inches of each other,
Mhm.
so you could choose neither or. Vice versa, thinking about something like KO, right? You can't stop the shots from KO sometimes. They're going to have a straight line at you sometimes. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But using terrain and using positioning, you can try to limit how much damage they're actually going to do. If I got, say, a terrain piece that covers, 2 of 3 of my models, that's fine.
Hmm.
I'm going to put the 2 of 3 behind there. I'll go first with the one guy that can't go behind there. Is it the most optimal position for me to get onto an objective? Probably not, but it's better than giving an Aether Cannon a free shot. So I
Yeah,
think
just losing
that's
a model.
right. So that's something to consider too, not just like cheating your position, but thinking about what is their threat range and how do I protect my models outside of that threat range, or if they're in the threat range, how can I protect them as well using the cover and whatnot.
And I think on top of the cover, you can screen in deployment, right? Like if you've got an
Yep.
important piece, go ahead and put the chaff in front. That's okay. If you've got that big guy that's coming in that is going to be able to smash, let me not put the thing that I want to play with the rest of the game right out in front where you can easily blow it up. Let me try to keep him in the back where he can either pivot away or maybe get a swing in if I deploy my chaff so that if you're engaged, make it so that you're 1 inch away from that model. And if I've got a 2 or 3 inch range or something like that, I want to deploy in a space where if you're engaged with my chaff, you're also in my threat range without me, so I can basically get a double attack off as well. Just a lot of it feels it's weird because it's like I feel like some people will hear this kind of info and just be like, it's so nitpicky, it's so just like so crunchy, and it feels so insignificant, but it wins games and it loses games. Those little things, and there's times we've all done it. You're like, you do something, you do a move, and then all of a sudden somebody moves, and you go, I could have thought about this for a moment longer, moved this 1/2 inch this way, and the game would have been completely different. And I did not see this thing that was coming. So yeah, it's and those suck, and that's. At least I think for all of us here, when those moments happen, that motivates us to talk about it, think about it, so that it never ever happens ever again.
Well,
But
we talk about making our best war cry, right? So making your
Yeah.
best war cry is knowing what you can control, what you can't control. I can't control my opponent getting quad 6. I can't control my
Mhm.
opponent getting crits, but I can always control where my model's positioned. I mean, besides getting pushed or like harpooned. I mean,
To an
obviously you can't
extent,
control that, right?
for the
But I can
most part.
control everything else. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Peter.
no, it's just I was kind of thinking about that without trying to draw off too much off the thing. But like this past tournament, multiple times when I was playing Rob, where I just had to make the decision of looking at my movement, like I have to play risky and aggressive in this moment because if I don't, I'm going to lose. It's like weighing up that risk assessment, going like, okay, if I put my models in these positions, what's going to be the consequence of that?
Mhm.
And like it seems like a lot to think about, but if you're just looking at the table and going, okay, these are the pieces I have control over, this is where his big pieces are. What is the chance of him removing these pieces? What can I do to mitigate that? And it's just those little things add up. They
Mhm.
do. They really do. And that starts with deployment.
So, like, just to continue on that thread, because you did run 3 Troggoths. Troggoths are not fast models, right?
No,
So
no.
when you're like going into this tournament, we talked about like positioning during deployments, but what about like deployment composition, right? Like, how did you build out your team to compensate for the Troggoths being that slow? Like, how did you decide like what's shield, what's hammer, what's dagger? Like, did you throw all 3 Troggoths into like one giant group, or did you separate them out? Like, what was your thought process around that?
So for that list, I was semi handicapping myself a little bit in that I wanted to have a low model count.
It was a real semi handicap. It was,
Yeah,
yeah, it was.
seven. Let's say that. But so it was only a 7 model list. Now obviously 7 models. One of the deployments is getting skewed in some way. So it was a Cruel Boys list with two actual Cruel Boys. But so my Killaboss with Flail was going with one of the Troggoths, and I was putting a Troggoth in every deployment.
Okay.
Just because based on the deployments and everything, I needed a main hitting piece in each one of those. And then it was utility because then I had a Boggle Eye, I had a Brugit, and I had Shank. So I had 2 nets and an ability to boost damage. So um, I put Shank in with the Killaboss and the Troggoth because he's the cheapest, most vulnerable piece. So I'm going to have him to be able to bounce off of 2 heavy hitters there. And it kind of helps balance the wounds at least a little bit because Brugit both have 12 wounds. So I'm going to spread them out with the other 2 Troggoths. So one of those Troggoths is going to be able to spike damage more than they already are with the blessings. Goggle Eye is going to be able to hold stuff in place and let me work around that too.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a nice mix of heavy hitting power, but also you got some shenanigan play to mess with your opponent's movement capabilities.
So, like, then that's interesting, right? Because you have 7 models, right? So say a typical warband is 8 models or 9 models, right? That's usually 3 in a group. You have 2 in 2 groups, but you said, you know what?
Mhm.
To fix this, I'm going to put those 2 smaller groups, a really big threat, and a net. So it doesn't feel like it's 2 models, right? Because that
Mhm.
net could run up,
Mhm.
net one of their guys. That guy's just taken out of the equation entirely. Suddenly it's a fair game 2 versus 2. And it's, you still got a big boy coming in. But it just kind of goes to show those that are watching, like, that's what you can do to try to, if I have to take a take all comers list, right? Don't know where I'm coming in, how you could buff certain deployments to make it feel a little bit more fair.
And that, Pete, that's actually a super similar concept to what I ran when I ran Spire Tyrants. The tournament was back in September, I think.
Right.
It was Spire Tyrants, so I had the best of gores, and I had 3 best of gores, 3 netters. Every deployment had a best of gore, every deployment had a netter. And functionally, with those ones, best of gores are a little easier to kill than trogs for sure. It's a little easier to get through the wounds, little easier to hit them. But at the end of the day, I could respond to whatever my opponent wanted to do by having both of those in there. So if you want to charge in and attack my netter so you don't get netted, that's fine. I've got this guy that's ready to hammer your skull and right next to him. So vice versa, if you want to decide to charge a big piece in there, I can either disengage with my heavier piece if I don't want to sit and swing and then chuck a net on it, or can go net something else that you've lost the sequencing to be able to protect from my netter. So especially netters, I think they having them in multiple deployments threatens the entire board in such a way that and like kind of like when we're talking with Toast recently about the Flesh Eater Court stuff, like that Marrow Scroll Herald, right? Like when you've got something that is a threat on the board, not just a damage threat, but something that is, a possibility of happening that's not just dying, although it still applies to that too. Giving your opponent really tough decisions to make and then being able to capitalize. Basically, there's a theory I've heard in like some other competitive games that I've kept up with. And it's attack what they can't defend, right? So once they've made their move, it's no longer their activation. So they don't have a defensive opportunity to do anything about what you're about to do. So charge in and take advantage of the whatever opening that they have provided you. And having a net allows you to, having a net and a threat next to each other, either, you counter the net play that they made or you counter the threat play that they made, and you do the opposite to try to take them out and just mess with them.
Well, something to think about too, right? So that's kind of more of an example of like a balanced deployment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like another one would be you're skewing it then. So something I often do with Gits is one of my favorite deployments is Bounder Boss, Snurk Sourton, the Underworld's Fanatic, and then a Brute Git.
I've talked about this on, I think it was Dayton Warcry Club. In my opinion, this is the best deployment in all of Warcry. Peter has narrowed it down. He's looked at every single model and he goes, I think I got it, gang. And you do. It's phenomenal. It's my favorite thing.
But what's fun about it though, so if you're going to skew right, because it's 445 points in one deployment, right? It's almost half your list in one deployment. But what's nice about that, though, is depending on where you get put, you have a speed piece in there that can go elswhere.
Here,
Let me off the bat.
Let's look at the profiles real fast.
Yeah, sure.
Almost to summarize this too, it's almost like we talked about threat ranges for attacks. It's also threat ranges for abilities, right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about the Marrow Scroll Herald, right? He's not going to move and attack you all the time, but he's going to double move, which is his 10-inch move, and then he's got a 3 inches to, offer that bone to see if he could use abilities or not. So you're thinking, wow, this guy sure doesn't have a 10-inch, attack range, but he has a 13-inch ability range, which is in most cases more than enough to get to the other person's deployment.
Yeah.
So using your own deployment,
you don't want it to get to.
right. So assuming they don't go first, you go first. You might say, hey, like I'm going to put my stuff at back of the deployment, either try to trap that model, or I'm going to go so far back and move that guy first, so there's no chance of him getting entrapped by that ability. But sorry, back to the Bounder Boss.
Well, it's funny though because like that kind of goes off this deployment in a way too, though, because you can use models to tempt your opponent, right? You can kind of choose to put that one model that you know they really want to kill, and maybe it's not as hard to kill that model either. Like, I use that with the Brugit all the time. I love tempting my opponent to go after the Brugit. And especially in this deployment, it works out really well because he's got 2 solid pieces to boost. So I can kind of decide based on where my deployment is and what my opponent's deployment is. Okay, what do I need in this situation? Snurk is move 4 with a 3-inch range. Bounder boss is move 8 with a 2-inch range. So Snurk's going to hit harder than the Bounder boss, but the Bounder boss has longer reach. So then I can kind of decide, all right, what's the prime target to remove models? Because I want to remove actions early on in the game. Both of these models can do that.
One thing I like about it, Pete, is if you get charged down and you haven't activated, either of the big guys yet, or if the whole deployment, say you lose initiative, that person decides, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to kill your Brugit. And maybe they don't kill it. They're like, I got to get that off the board in a hurry. Well, now you've got 2 things that are just kind of hanging out in the back that can get buffed up by the Brugit that have range 3 and range 2. So, you're not committed to that 1-inch bubble around a single model. You've got functionally, Snurk's got that 6-inch diameter circle that he's threatening, and then 4 inches for, well, more, right? It's the range plus the base size that they're functionally getting.
Right.
And it's such a cool idea to have those 2, like you said, the range in a multitude of different ways, whether you move it and do something with it, or if you just sit there, you've got things that don't have to be engaged that can swing into it, which is, again, goes to show how brilliant it is.
One of the things I liked about it too is like that Bounder boss has fly, right? So one things we didn't really talk about in terms of deployments is move blocking yourself. Number of times I'm like, all right, I'm gonna put my zombies up front. I'm gonna put Diantelos behind in my first move because it's turn 1. I'm probably not rezzing. I'm like, oh, I want to move Diantelos and throw some bolts. And then I realized I can't do that yet because I just blocked an entire wall of zombies to protect myself. Didn't give myself the movement to actually get through. With your deployment here, like you could say, well, I really, really want to launch this Bounder boss across the board. And I really don't want him being stopped. So then you put Skirk in front and be like, yeah, you could attack this because if you're stopped by this, I'm just going to fly over both of you guys and launch my attack anyway.
And similar, sorry, go Pete.
No, I was just saying that's the beauty of it too, though, because you want to activate the Brugit first, because that's how Moonshine Potion works, right? But on top of that, suddenly you have an intercept piece that goes like, hey, you have to get past me first. And the guys that have range and movement are going to do whatever they want after the fact. It creates a really awkward place for your opponent, because then your opponent's got to decide, like, is this even worth going after right now, or should I be going somewhere else on the board? Like,
and you've created that, like, it's a lose-lose situation, right? Like, yes, I need to, or what am I willing to sacrifice to get through what I think I'm needing to get through over there? And Brugit's almost always the first target on the board. Nets and Brugit almost always. Aether Cannons are up there too. The first thing you see them on the board, you're like, well, that's got to die. Let's get rid of that as soon as possible. You've got
tying it all together, right? Like, you did this all during deployment. You screened yourself, you buffed your guy, you put him in threat range, and the game barely started at this point, right? It just kind of goes to show how important thinking about what do I want to do, how do I want to do it, how do I have the position to make this happen.
Yeah. And you want to go into it stepped up and loaded. You don't want to be thinking after fact going like, oh, I'm not actually prepped for this.
Like Kyle said, whoops, I put a wall of bodies in front of me that stops everything from getting through, including me.
Right.
But I think another kind of thought process, like the reverse of that's kind of a offensively minded kind of play style for it. Because you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to hit? How am I going to clap back? Well, in the same way that Kyle was looking at a defensive one, let's deploy as a screen. If I deploy in a place where if I get charged down, I don't have space to disengage, I'm stuck fighting, with a piece that I may not want to be fighting with. So things like Aether Cannons, you want to have, wiggle room to be able to maybe you kind of, at least want 2 places to be able to get out, right? You want that main entrance and exit, and then you want the escape tunnel out the back, so that if you do get charged down and you don't die, you can disengage and get a shot off with those really important pieces and the really impactful pieces that pop up in the game, because you can get into a spot where you're just stuck. You're like, well, I guess I genuinely don't know this. Do Aether Cannons have a melee profile? I'm honestly
They
not
do.
sure.
It's really
they?
bad.
Okay.
But like you bring up a point, right? Like if I have a corner positioning, right? How do I position myself in the corner to try to prevent myself from, as you say, getting blocked into that corner, right? Someone wants to launch. I'm just keep using the Vargolf because the model's cool. Launch the Vargolf. Tokyo drifts in with that 90-inch millimeter base, and I'm locked in the corner. Then I'm sitting there like, well, I'm stuck now, right? You could either have said, well, either A, maybe I try to put him all the way to the, one side of the board, all the way pushed up. So if he gives me any gap, I could try to escape that way. Or if you know that Vargolf's coming and you want to protect your Aether Cannon, you say, you know what, I'm going to put him in the back, put my other people up front, let them take a couple hits and let them, tank that boss instead. And then he's not even engaged with me. I'm just going to shoot over him. That's perfectly okay. Like both are valid strategies to try to think about when you're deploying and when your threats are coming down towards you.
And going off of that too, like talking about KO, Wilder Core, right? Having pieces that have that strong range ability or something. Like if you got multiple pieces of deployment, KO is a fine example because they're thinking fight for profit, right?
Yeah.
I want to be close to my leader so I can boost it. Well, that doesn't mean you got to put both those range pieces directly next to each other.
You got a 3-inch bubble, baby.
Yeah, right.
Buddy system, but like we don't have to hold hands.
Well, if you don't have that, Vargolf that can Tokyo drift into multiple models, and it's a smaller base, I mean, don't set yourself up to have that Titan piece, that ogre to, on the Maw path, stomp himself in and go like, I'm in combat with all of you. And I'm going to do what I want now. Like, you got to constantly think about, like, you've got a 50-point chaff unit with 12 wounds. Stick them in there and position it so you can intercept.
Hey, Rob's back. Rob, everything come out okay?
There's a lot of poop, dude. There's so much poop here. You don't even know about it, dude. The poop is just...
I'm okay with it. I think I accept the ignorance that I have. Ignorance is bliss in this case.
It's like if it was a broken Carvel machine and it just,
Official
not for
confirmation.
me.
Rob is indeed full of.
My children being poop factories.
Rob, we covered a lot of stuff since you were.
I'm sure.
but any nuggets? You got any nuggets you want to drop? That's okay.
That's also bad wording.
Like
that's not good wording.
Can these said nuggets be filled with corn? Yes. What did we cover?
We talked about kind of like cheating out a little bit. We talked about positioning for getting a hit first, positioning. We talked about everything. So
picked up a little bit of what was coming on at the end of it, right when I picked it up. I think the biggest thing for me too is figuring out the distances between deployments. And having set like I have range. This is the range here. I have to move XYZ. And this is a little bit like extreme in the preparation of what I do. So like I'm going to go through all 30 missions and be like, it's this far, it's this far, it's this far. Because like, I just deal with poop for a living.
That's just part of your illness.
This is part of my mental illness. And everybody's like, hey, good job. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good at Warcry sometimes. And when I'm not losing the staff bot. And then it's that's the biggest thing.
If it wasn't a dice game, you would have won every game before the game started. You're like, I already beat you in this game. I've done this prep. I've played this mission against this warband exactly. It's over. Ones are happening. I mean, like, let's go ahead and call it.
I mean, like, that's like a big thing, right? For like the Nova prep, when I was like saying, like, when I was thinking, like, okay, what are the big bads? It's KO, it's Soul Blight. This is how they could potentially deploy in these missions. Like we had the mission charts, like I knew what they were, so I wasn't going through 30 missions being like, "Oh, take the red pill. I'm gonna get all of it."
Mission chart. It's just
we have 30 of them, right? But like, so like it's kind of like knowing my ranges kind of dictates how my movement's gonna be where I have to go. Do I have to wait here? Then can I move? Do I just move and fire if they move here? It becomes a big flow chart of like preparation and then knowing exactly what's going to happen and like reacting to it when it does happen. Because you can, like what Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right?
He
So
says
it's
it a little less eloquently. It's a little more of a
right.
lisp, but I
Right,
think those
right,
were words.
right. Yeah, I'm not gonna touch that one. But I mean I want to,
Please.
but it's kind of it's dictated by also like what your dice are. There's so many other factors and variables to get into. It just drive you nuts to try and think it out. So you kind of got to play and like react to it. But definitely, what's the distance between deployments and what's the distance between objectives and deployments? And like you mentioned before with treasure hunters, winning initiative is essential. I have to get to the center. Which one of these guys can get to the center? How far is it to the center? Is terrain affecting it and stuff like that. So like it's interesting to learn.
No, I
And
mean, like you brought up a good point. Like just even like distance between deployments, both on round one and round two. Like I've
right.
always told people, like when you play Reaper, right, the other guy's got a tyrant. Like yeah, most of the time you're not going to win if you don't have something equivalent, right? But if you look at the deployments, turn one you're kind of like on the bottom, say right, and then your opponent is coming in dead center on the opposite side. So if you're smart and say, all right, well, I'm not going to win turn one, but if I rush my entire group coming out turn one, I can ambush that group coming out turn two, and maybe I'll have a fighting chance, right? So it's
Yeah,
just
I
knowing
mean,
deployments.
Here you go, Kyle.
definitely. And
I got the map for you real quick. The deployment. Shout out
ooh,
Warcry Legends.
Right. So
Yeah,
if you look
Reaper.
at, for example, if you're blue and you're coming in the middle and the bottom and in shield, right? So you can put your slower guys in shield, knowing they can make it over to the red hammer. You put some of your faster guys into the dagger, knowing that they also can get over to the hammer. And yeah, let your opponent chase you, ambush that hammer, and just start a brawl. And that way, your opponent can't outspeed you. You have a little bit more of a fighting chance in a mission that maybe looked pretty hopeless from before.
And
right.
that
And that's according to what your opponent has. Because if your opponent's tyrant's coming in round two, don't go to
Yeah,
that
just
deployment.
run.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
go towards the train.
right, right. Don't go towards it. Right, run away from the light. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the other thing too. Also, being understanding of like what and how you can interact with deployments, like you just said, is another thing. Like when I was running at Nova Hrothgorn with Bushwhacker, I run up to these side deployments and throw a trap in there. And then it's like, well, no matter what, someone's going to move across it once they make their first move. It's just a matter of who, and then it's rolling dice. And it's just like being able to kind of gauge, weigh, and slow down deployments too as you come in. I don't know if you talked about aggressive or offensive and defensive deployments.
We
a little
did.
bit.
And I
We
think
talked about your we talked about your moments that you've had with turn one quads getting charged down.
you think I would have learned like it's like it's almost like arrogance that like I set up and I'm like, I'll
I
be
don't think it's
okay.
almost. I think
It's 100%.
It always comes down to chance, right? You always win Warcry just by rolling sixes. So
Yeah, dude, I should have banked. Like I wasn't rolling the sixes that day. Somebody else had to be. So
should have
when
brought your
like
sixes. Just
yeah,
bring
I
them
got
along.
them. They were just put into
Going
my
off
mouth
of
promptly.
Well, going off of that though, I got a good example of this, like threats, right? Not recognizing it. Like the night before the tournament, Rob and I are playing, right? And he does a clutch move at the end of the game with the Vulcan Rune Father throwing a hatchet and killing one of my Noblars.
Ooh.
And
Domed him.
I
Absolutely
completely,
domed him.
I only played against Flame Seekers once before, and I completely forgot that like they have throwing hatchets they can crit with abilities, and
Right.
like my 6 wound guy, that's a problem. So like I finished the game after that, going like, yeah, I gotta really remember that. So what do? I go into the tournament, and was it third match of the day? Yeah, third match. I move a Brugit up, who promptly gets hatcheted off the board round one by 3 Flame Seekers just
Some,
hucking hatchets at him.
sometimes it takes more than one lesson, Pete. You know,
Yeah,
not
no,
everybody gets it the first try.
it's the like when I was playing like when we were practicing on TTS, Pete, and you like rampage turn one into me
I
with a
brought.
quad six, the same
Yeah,
thing.
we
I was like reliving it. I was like, should have fucking learned it the first time. Yeah.
Because that was the ogre too, that right? You were playing the ogre Warhulk, and then Pete
removing
charged
the
in.
You're
ogre
hitting
for
on
gauntlets.
fives, and you're
Man.
like, I'm just gonna roll dice. You're like, I rolled average. I'm like, you're not rolling average if you killed 35 wounds on 5 ups. Like, it's not
well,
rolling average.
It was
The
only 50
epitome-
dice hitting 4-8 though. It's
The epitome of aggressive deployment to me is when Rob is running a clawback, knowing where your turn 2 horde is coming out,
Oh yeah.
and he sits it dead
Yeah.
center of your deployment. So remember, the deployment rule says you have to go as close to the deployment as possible. So
Yep.
the clawback
Your
takes up
models
the
or opponent models.
entire deployment, meaning I'm forced to engage that model completely. And then he just has like quad ones. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna get like 6 extra attacks and just wipe out your entire deployment just because I'm sitting in the middle of it. So
My goodness.
You know,
It's just,
I've done
for me.
yeah. Oops. Like I've done enough things like that to where like getting my lickings is definitely something I deserve too. Don't worry, Pete, it's coming for you too. And it's good though, dude. It's fun when you know stuff like that. But that's what separates like a good player from a great player. That's what separates the person who's prepped for not prepped. And sometimes you could do all the prep work you want, and if the then make the correct decisions, and if the dice just say no at the end of the night, then the dice say no when you and you lose. Like it happens. It's a dice game at the end of the day, and there's variance, and there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, but I think deployment is something else to think about, which we haven't brought up too, is
Deployment's in your
uh,
control, though. That's a big thing.
like, and so is tournament quests, right? So look at your deployment. If you're deploying all the way just on one side of the map, maybe you don't choose the quest that is to get into all 4 corners because you're
Mhm.
probably not going to make it, right? Um,
Right.
so I think looking at that also can change what quests do I want to pick,
Mhm.
um, and which ones do I want to hold on to. Like I know going into Adepticon, I'm not sure if they're going to release all of them at the beginning of the day. I don't know if it's going to be random that
I
the
think
the
it'll
turn
be
of.
based on last time. It'll probably be the regular ones in the core book. So it's like hold the center, one on every
I meant
corner, one on every
each
edge.
mission.
Oh, sure. Yep.
So, but that's something to think about where it's like, if this mission, I could really easily achieve this one, maybe kind of not achieve this one, but this one's not as good for me. You could really debate and say, all right, I'm going to do the highest point because I deploy on the highest point to start with, and I just have to sit here all game with my ether cannon. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to pick, right? Versus 4 corners, you might say, all right, well, maybe I'll hope for a later mission to make that a little bit easier.
Or maybe a fight like ley lines, a 5 objective mission or something like that, where you're going
Yeah.
to want to be spread out as it is. I'll give the perfect counterpoint to that. Last TTS league, I was running a spicy little 3 model list. I tell you what, I wasn't trying to get a model in wholly within all 4 corners. I don't think I could have pulled that one off. But you got to know what your warband is, and then like you said, Kyle, like thinking about like how the deployment is going to interact with that. Am I where am I needing to move throughout the mission from where I'm at? Does it make sense to try to synergize those? And then thinking about like, hey, is there a bunch of high stuff on the board? This is something I consider. Tournament quests are just as much a lot of the time about you beating your opponent in that exact same thing. So if you guys pick the same thing, guess what? Only one of you's getting it, and you're both trying to fight against the exact same point of it. So if you see your opponent starting to climb, you're like, defense time, buddy. We're gonna have to shoot you down from up there. I don't like where you're at.
I have unfortunate like I don't have any hard data on it. It's just anecdotal evidence, but it's like whenever I figure out that me and my opponent have the same TQ, we're almost never scoring it because we're so aggressively pursuing it. Like kill the leader. Both our leaders are dead. right. Oops.
Have your
I think
warband.
Pete, when I played you in Nova, I think you had to be in the center, and I had no clue that you picked that. So I'm like, I'm just gonna move this guy here by accident, and then like I put the dude in the
Which
center.
what a great late game thing to do though, right? I mean, what a great counterpoint to whatever your opponent is doing. If you've got nothing to do with a model at the end of the game, the game's over. We already know who's
Right.
going to win. Basically, if you got a model close to the center of the board, just in case your opponent has it, it's not necessarily going to directly affect you, right? Unless you guys are close in the standings. But denying tournament quests and points for your opponent over the course of what the game is doing can be impactful.
I've seen tournaments decided by those tournament
Yeah.
quests, right? So it's still something to think about, and
It's
really something you got to think
definitely
about
its
during your
own.
deployments.
It's
Mhm.
definitely its own game in its own right, and I must admit that I am is definitely the weakest part of my game is picking the appropriate tournament quests. I think it adds such a layer to me that I know we're getting away from deployments, but like TQs are so difficult in their own right sometimes to score. Sometimes you have no good pick and you only get to use them once, so then you have like a throwaway pick, like, oh, this one's got high ground, let me get there, like, or oh, I don't, I'm never going to get 3/4, I'm just throwing it away, and it stinks because it feels very
That's
uneven.
why I was also saying, like, if you know all the tournament quests, you could think about which one is easy to achieve based on this mission
Right.
and based on your deployment.
It
Like,
also
Four Corners
changes
is
though
easy
based
if
on
you
your
start
opponent
on
though.
opposite side of the map, right? Like,
Hey,
right.
Peter and I learned this last year in our game when we drew the game proper, and I pulled a slick move where I forgot to choose a tournament quest, and Peter accomplished his. One thing to note, if you just since we're on the topic and we're just, hey, there's no rules. One super important thing to remember is that they don't actually apply to that game. They only apply for overall score. So if you tie 10-10 on a mission, and then you then Pete's entered the ether.
we lost him.
That's all right. Well, I wonder if there's poop in his house too.
There's so much poop there, bro. I guarantee it, dude.
It's,
Guys.
I mean, yeah, I won't. Never mind. I'll skip that thought. But it doesn't, it doesn't change if it's a draw. It doesn't change anything within that specific. Well, there he is. I clicked the button to let him in, so it's. I knew he was there. But yeah, it doesn't actually apply to the score for that game. Just an important note.
Remember that trip to Middle Earth, Pete?
Oh no, he's frozen again. No, he's not. His eyes are moving.
Is there just to stay focused here because we're nearing our time limit. Just to keep focused here because we're reaching our time limit. Is there anything else we want to mention on deployments? We talked about positioning deployments, kind of cheating movement, talking about threat ranges and everything else. Anything else you want to mention? Any last thoughts?
Play more TTS with us. Come join our league.
Play more TTS.
We're gonna leave the
getting
link
better
in the
deployments.
Thing. My bad. I'm sorry, Kyle.
Getting better deployments is practice, right? Play some TTS. It's a great way to do it. It's got literally perfect measurements, so you could really measure that really without trying. It's got this awesome feature to actually put an aura on something. So we talked about threat ranges. Being able to type onto a model, say like, hey, this model's got a 10-inch threat range, helps you visualize that. So when you go to a tournament, sure, it won't be superimposed on your table anymore, but at least you'll have a better understanding as you go into that tournament.
Right.
So yeah, cannot recommend TTS enough to get those games in to try that stuff out. But I think we'll wrap it up there. So just around the horn here, any last comments, Rob?
Nah, man, I'm sorry that I had the poop fiasco, but you know what? I can tell you.
To be clear, probably it wasn't your poop, right? This was a poop event in the household.
This was not my poop. If this was my poop fiasco, I'd just bring this in there and Pete's gone. Rude.
Yeah, Pete's dumb.
Oh, he's back.
Pete's using teleports.
Frames. Maybe that'll work.
Pete, I feel like your face would be perfect for Zordon.
Go where I will.
Rangers. Like you just give me like a good Zordon vibe. I want you to know that.
We're trying to close out and turn into a Pete roast here.
That's not a roast. That's a compliment in the highest. Look at it froze on that beautiful face.
Oh, let's end it. So it has to be like, man.
All right, Mike, lead us out. Lead us out.
No, dude.
We're gonna buy Pete new internet. I don't know how, but we're gonna get it to him somehow. Oh, there he's back. For deployments, I think one thing that if you want to think about them more, the really nice thing is it's the beginning game state, so you don't have to play the game out. You can just
gonna go rip my router out.
It's so
Pete's using Internet Explorer over there.
Pete's like, I gotta boot up my CompuServe real quick and pedal on my modem with dial-up.
I forgot to feed the carrier pigeon. I don't know.
Pete's just such a nice guy. He opens and clicks on every spam email, and he just sends a personalized response. So, unfortunately, they get him sometimes.
Look at his computer. It's about 37 hotbars at the top. Just
Pete's an advocate fan of Ask Jeeves still. He's like, one day Jeeves will respond back to me. It's
Man.
close.
All right. I'm closing this out so we can end under an hour here. But thank you all for who watched this. This was once again 3 Heroes, 1 Chaff. This episode was the Art of Warcry, Adepticon Prepticon Part 2, where we talked about deployment. If you want to support us, please like and subscribe. Put some notes in the comments about what you want to hear from next. If you have any questions, we're very responsive. And hit us up on Discord as well. Aside from that, see you guys next time.
Have a good night.
Later. I'm gonna hold on. I'm not gonna cut it. We're gonna leave this in. Let's do a surprise face that Pete's gone. Let's pretend like Pete's gone for the thumbnail. That'll be.
Are we looking at him for it?
Hopefully that works. No, Rob, you're looking at Kyle. What are you doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to look up.
Do you see where?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Just-
I'm gonna blame the
now-
storm.
Great, no, now I'm gonna have to
Pretty much
Photoshop
blame
everything. Pete, make a fun. We got lots of good Pete faces. Pete, give us the "Where am I" face. Give us "I'm hidden." There we go. It's
The
perfect.
delay just made him look
I
angry
give up.
at you.
It's so good.
perfect.
The delay is just.
Just Photoshop Pete somewhere in Middle Earth. I think that'd be the best. Like,
I'm going on an adventure.
He's got the ring in his hand.
Mount Doom, just ready to throw it in.
I think I'll keep it.
The ring would be like a deployment symbol, like about to throw it in Mount Doom. That would be sick.
That.
Ooh, spiced. All right, Pete, you got anything before I actually cut? Give him 12 seconds to buffer.
Oh, to heck with it. I blame the storm. I don't know.
There's a storm out there.
It's snowstorm,
Yeah, it's bad. It's not great.
Yeah, we got some rain.